investments from Japan to Africa to promote more trade between our two countries in the spirit of the and job creation. Budgets to realize the shared vision of Africa's future and to harness the power of private sector, capital and expertise. Africa faces growing climate and systemic risks. Integrating resilience in its investments is essential. At ATIDI, where I am from, we are committed to devising projects that cover political and credit insurance that is required to cover these vulnerable markets. This not only safeguards the investments, but also attracts more capital into sectors like renewable energy and resilient infrastructure, thus driving the future growth for the continent. As African private sector institutions, we understand that meaningful progress requires active collaboration between the public and private sectors. And this is why we are committed to supporting this dialogue through facilitating investment and trade opportunities in the continent. We will work to identify and promote opportunities within Africa, in Africa's emerging sectors such as renewable energy, agribusiness, manufacturing, and the digital economies. You heard about the startups, earlier speakers. By creating the bridge between investors and project developers, we aim to accelerate project realization and collaborate with governments to streamline regulatory frameworks that reduce barriers and entry and foster an enabling environment for private sector to thrive. Our insights are data-driven and they create recommendations that we can give to policymakers. In conclusion, the success of Africa's development journey hinges on our collaborative, collective effort between governments, private sector, partners, civil society, working in harmony to unlock the continent's vast potential. We must acknowledge that the public sector alone cannot fulfill the enormous financing gap. It is through robust partnerships, innovative financing solutions, and active private sector engagement like we are doing today that can turn opportunities into realities and aspirations into achievements. Let us forge together a future where Africa is the hub of sustainable growth, innovation, shared prosperity in the spirit of Ticket 9. Thank you very much.
Moses. Thank you very much. Now we will show you a promotional video for Ticket 9. Please enjoy.
Has addressed various development issues in Africa based on fundamental principles such as ownership by African countries and partnership with the international community, quality growth, human security, African development through public and private sector cooperation. In accordance with the changing global environment and development landscape in Africa.
I participated in the training program of the Japanese government because I wanted to contribute to the Africa's development. Japanese enterprises have excellent people in each field of expertise, helping each other as a team and making the organization strong. With my training and experience in Japan, this is what my company aims to achieve as well.
I find it strongly rewarding to come up with my own business plan. while working together with the local people through a trial and error process. We'll continue to challenge ourselves on creating new businesses to help the development of the African food and agriculture industry.
If you remember, in 1993, the perceptions worldwide, but most of the partners had of Africa, was a very negative perception. It was a continent that would not get out of poverty. But amidst these perceptions, Japan decided to launch the first TICAD, a partnership between Africa and Japan. It's not embedded in a dynamics of donor-recipient. It's a mutual understanding which leads to a foundation of trust. Stronger deepening of between Africa and Japan.
Japan will advance together with Africa for its ministers from African nations gathered in Japan in preparation for TICAD 9. Participants reaffirmed their commitment to co-creating innovative solutions to African and global challenges.
Startups across Africa, so that gives
There's a lot of things we can learn from each other, like learn from Africa and also learn from Japan.
So we pass the baton to each other person, and we grow, we co-create, we thrive.
For over 30 years, Japan and Africa have built solid trust through TICAD. Together, the two are moving into a new stage. Japan and Africa are co-creating at TICAD, and the outcomes are all around. In Africa's urban areas, where demand for air conditioners is rising, we are helping lower greenhouse gas emissions and electricity costs by promoting energy-efficient Japanese air conditioners.
I also want to leave a healthy environment for future generations.
He graduated from a training course established by Daikin. In rural areas, fires are made using firewood.
Wood is precious, so we want to reduce deforestation by using biofuel. We use the machine to turn rice husks into biofuel. We learned the technology from Japanese at CFPT.
The Senegal-Japan Vocational Training Center has been contributing to the development of diverse skills for 40 years. Through TICAD, together with African leaders, we will co-create a better future.
それではこれよりパネルディスカッションをさせていただきます。パネルディスカッション1では持続可能な産業エコシステム強化による経済多角化について討論をいただきます。We will now move on to panel discussion 1, which will focus on economic diversification through strengthening sustainable industrial ecosystem. モデレーターはアフナ・エザコンワ UNDP 総裁保健アフリカ局長に代わりましてマティアス・ナーブ UNDP アフリカ地域サービスセンター所長にお願いをいたします。We'd like to ask Mr. Matthias Nord, Director Regional Service Center for Africa UNDP, to kindly serve as the moderator on behalf of Ms. Ahuna Achakonwa, Assistant Administrator and Director of the Regional Bureau for Africa, UNDP. So, Mr. No, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Warm welcome to this very important panel this afternoon. You know, throughout the past 2 days that we have been meeting on Ticket 9, one thing has stood out, and it is the fact that we are seeing dynamic shifts on the African continent in terms of its potential, but also its challenges. And a central piece of the conversation has been about Africa's demographic, particularly its youth, and the dynamism of its youth that it brings, but also the challenge that it brings. And to harness this, the continent has to shift from natural resource, commodity-heavy economies to diverse, innovation-driven industries, including tech and creative sector. And partners in African development through initiatives like Ticket can really help build more sustainable pathways to Africa gaining economic transformation and prosperity. And the goal here is about co-creating resilient industrial ecosystems that empower African youth and drive long-term development. And so today, we welcome you to session 1 of the Public-Private Business Dialogue, where we explore these innovative solutions to economic diversification and sustainable ecosystems. In the next 60 minutes, if we can make it, we will hear from a diverse group of speakers who will highlight how Africa can shift from resource-dependent economies to dynamic, diversified industrial sectors, focusing on technology, on creative industries and beyond, by leveraging partnerships like those cultivated within Ticket. And I'm very happy to tell you today that we've got some very distinguished speakers in this panel. I am particularly grateful to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President of the Republic of Ghana, a key leader from the public sector, but of also an important country on the continent, who will be sharing his insights on the role that he sees for government in enabling industrial diversification. I'll come to him. We will also have Dr. Tanaka, President of JICA, who will provide some interesting examples of how Japan's role is helping to foster Africa's industrial transformation through sustainable partnerships. And then we have also from the private sector, we will have Mr. Jimmy Muteba, a young co-founder and CEO of Mood Swing. He's an entrepreneur who is known for his work in Africa's creative industries. And Jimmy will be sharing his own experience in driving economic transformation and diversification. And then, last but not least, we will also have, actually before that, we'll have Mr. Toshimoto Mitomo, who is Executive Deputy President and CSO at Sony Group Corporation. Mitomo we look forward to hearing how the private sector can contribute to building the kind of dynamism and innovation we're looking for here. Last but not least, we will hear from Mr. Samaila Subairo, who is President and CEO of the Africa Finance Corporation, and he will discuss the financial mechanisms that are required to support Africa's industrial ecosystem. I'm going to be asking the panelists a couple of questions more specifically. And the first speaker is going to be His Excellency John Mahama. And the question that I have for him, which also will be answered by two other panelists, is why investing, Your Excellency, why is investing in youth-driven industries, specifically in startups and in creative sectors, essential for Africa's economic diversification in the 21st century?
Yeah, thank you, Ahuna. Very happy to be a part of this panel to share a few of the insights in why we need to diversify African economies, especially with regards to youth startups. The answer is simple. It's that the demographics have changed and that the majority of the population in Africa is youthful. And so there's no way you can grow a successful economy without investing in the youth. The youth form 60%, if you take the age category of between 16 and 35, they form 60% of Africa's population. And so that's not a demographic you can ignore. But aside from that, the world is changing and it's now a knowledge economy. The youth are interested in certain sectors that are not the traditional sectors. And so in the creatives, in the renewable energy space, even if they go for traditional sectors like agriculture, they are looking at agri-tech and other, knowledge-driven aspects of those traditional sectors. And so it is important to invest in those sectors so that you can attract the youth to go into those sectors. Now, if you look at Africa, in 2024, there was about an investment of 4.2 billion in startups, and a lot of that went into, the biggest majority was about 45%, which went into fintechs. The fintech space is growing at an astronomical rate in Africa, and it's mainly driven by smart tech-savvy youth who have seen openings and are taking advantage of it. In all our countries, a change in the economic structure is happening. For instance, in Ghana, in 2015, the services sector overtook agriculture and industry and manufacturing to become the largest sector in our economy, and that's how it should be. And so, for instance, if you take the fintechs, I met the fintech groups, and one of the interesting ones I found was an agri-tech company, and it was solving a problem that we've been struggling with as government for many years, how to extend credit and support to farmers in order that they can increase productivity. And so we had a shot in the dark approach, distributing fertilizers, distributing inputs, and so on and so forth. And you couldn't tell who exactly those inputs were going to and whether you were getting value for money for those inputs. I mean, these young people set up a fintech, they set up a platform, they gave mobile phones to farmers, they distributed to the agricultural inputs to the farmers based on their acreage and their need, and based on the fact that they had them on the platform, they could send credit to them by mobile money, and at the end of the farming season, go directly to the farmer and offtake the production. And that changed it completely. The farmers are able to get a credit score now. And so you can see who's credit worthy and who's not. And so it's changed the face of agriculture. It's changing the face of agriculture in our country. Apart from that, the creative sector and youth startups are adding jobs faster than the traditional sectors. And so if you take the creatives, renewable energy and those spaces, they add about 4 jobs before you can create 1 job in agriculture or manufacturing. And so investing in that sector means that we can absorb more of the myriad of young people who are coming out of school. If we decide to concentrate on manufacturing and industry, Africa needs to turn up about 12 to 15 million jobs a year. You cannot create that in manufacturing and industry and agriculture alone, but the rate at which the creatives and digital space add jobs is much faster than the traditional economy. So it's a place that we must invest as governments in order that we can absorb more of the youth. We know that we say the youth bulge or the huge youth population in Africa is an advantage, but if we do not create enough jobs fast enough to absorb those young people coming out, then it will become a gunpowder keg and it could consume us.
Thank you, Your Excellency. You know, one of the things that you've highlighted here is the volume, the scale of the need when it comes to jobs. Thank you. Yes, I think His Excellency deserves a round of applause there. You have really highlighted the need on the job front and the fact that we're not just talking about